It would be your fault. Even as the phrase echoed silently through her head, she could feel him, his hand slipping beneath the pleated skirt of her school uniform as he groped her in places he shouldn't touch. The bare light bulb inside the janitor's closet cast a dim glow from above, and as he held her down, he appeared as little more than a hulking silhouette in muddy tones of red and white. He stank with a weird grandma's house smell of cigarettes, mothballs, and peppermint candies. It filled her nose, tingling and taking her breath away as he held his other hand pressed tightly over her mouth. Even now she could feel the hot tears that had burned her eyes as he pushed his fingers into the waistband of her underwear and pulled them down around her knees. "Remember, this is a secret," he whispered. His cigarette-stinking breath was wet on her cheek, and the fake beard felt scratchy against her skin. "If you tell anyone, I'll have to come to your house and hurt your parents. Maybe even kill them. It would be your fault that I would have to kill them. You don't want that to happen, do you? You don't want to make me kill your parents, right? Promise you won't tell." She had tried to promise, but her mouth was still covered and all that came out was a whine from her nose. Of course it didn't matter, because he wasn't listening to her anyway. He was already doing things he shouldn't do. Things that hurt. Things that made her cry. "We'll see, Becca, we'll see." Elizabeth's exasperated voice snapped Mary back into the here and now, but the memories remained, fresh and painful as ever. She shrunk herself as small as she could inside her down-filled coat, balling her small hands into tight fists and pulling them up into the puffy sleeves. She pushed her chin against her chest, and her dark hair flopped forward to cover her face. The air from the heater vent in the floorboard was hot against her legs, and it reminded her of his rough, probing hands against her skin. She shuddered, and then lifted her chin and turned her head to look out the side window. In an absent motion, she reached up and brushed the hair from her eyes with the back of her sleeve. Mary stared through the smudged pane of glass as the landscape rushed by. The sun was already resting low on the horizon behind them, so the snow-covered fields on either side of the highway were already filling with scary blue-black shadows. But home wasn't all that far away. They would be there soon, and then maybe she would finally feel safe. Home had to be safe. It just had to be. Surely he couldn't find them there. After all, he wasn't really Santa Claus. Santa wasn't even real. So he didn't have a magic list. But maybe he didn't need one. He knew her name.
"Ho, ho, ho!"
he bellowed, putting on a show for Sister Conran.
"Why, yes, sister, yes. Mary was very helpful today. Thank you so much for letting her assist me. I wouldn't have been prepared to visit with the younger children without her. She's Santa's special little helper. Aren't you, Mary?"
She wanted to cringe when he reached over and rubbed his hand against her back in a way that just didn't feel right. She thought about telling the nun what had really happened, but she knew Sister Conran would probably think she was lying.
"What do you say, Mary Frances?"
Sister Conran demanded, her voice sharp and mean like always. "Yes, sir. Thank you for letting me help." Mary managed to choke out the words, but she kept her eyes aimed at the floor as she spoke. She simply couldn't bear to look at him.
"Yes,"
he continued with his praise and unwelcome touching.
"Mary is Santa's very special little helper. She is very special."
Mary's stomach continued to churn as a new wave of fear settled over her. He knew her name. "But it's just my name," she thought. "And I live in Hewlett, not Maze. That's a whole town away. He can't really know where I live. Unless he is following us." Hollowness filled Mary's chest at the thought, and she wasn't sure she could breathe anymore.